welcome to Half the Battle. Well, you asked for it, and boy are you gonna get it.
Today we're gonna take a look at a bunch of G.I. Joe characters and how they were changed in foreign countries. I'll be primarily focusing on Holland and Belgium with some France thrown in, as those are the file cards I have and I can work with them without having to get a dictionary. I won't be talking about Action Force, the name G.I. Joe used in the United Kingdom and parts of Europe, since that's a whole different topic all in itself. I'm pretty sure you'll get an episode or two about it eventually though.
So now, let's see what us dang blasted foreigners did to G.I. Joe, a real American hero.
And well, first of all, it wasn't called a real American hero at all. No, the full title, at least in Europe, was G.I. Joe The International Heroes. Or Heroes Without Borders if you go by the French title. This was done so the toy line would have a broader appeal.
Now, don't get me wrong, we love America and all Americans.
Well, almost all Americans, but changing the title was probably a good idea, and G.I. Joe tended to operate all over the world anyway.
With that said, let's move on to the characters, starting and finishing with the file cards.
Firstly, let's talk about a character you should already know about, Wild Weasel, or, as we know him here, Fucker G.
There is, believe it or not, an innocent explanation behind the name.
Fucker was simply the name of a Dutch plane manufacturer, it's that simple. Well, I say an innocent explanation, but there's no way they didn't know exactly what they were doing here. The French sidestepped this by calling him rapace, which boringly means bird of prey.
I'll say no more about this fucker here, since I've already said it in my Wild Weasel review.
Besides, when it comes to this joke, Ben Stiller has already drank that well dry. Drank it dry, then poured concrete down the thing. And salted the surrounding earth for good measure.
Screw you, Ben Stiller! Moving on.
Let's talk about what many consider to be the most iconic character in G.I. Joe, Snake Eyes. This one isn't so much funny as it is weird. In Dutch, he was called Scherpzicht, which literally translates to sharp sight, meaning somebody who has really good eyesight. Yeah, what I think happened here is the translator wasn't familiar with English sayings, so he had no idea what snake eyes referred to, instead just figuring it had something to do with accuracy of vision.
Because snakes are so well known for their keen eyesight, right?
In French, they more or less went with the literal translation, calling him œil de serpent, meaning eye of the snake, which sounds pretty cool.
Things get a little weird from here on, though.
You see, that was just the first toy of Snake Eyes we got. For later ones, they changed the name. He was now Slangeoog, meaning snake eye, so this time the Dutch went with the literal translation, while in French, he became Crotal. And Crotal means rattlesnake. Yeah, they gave him a name you'd associate with the bad guys.
It boggles the mind.
Though I have to admit, the original American one had the same problem. I mean, why would you give one of the good guys a name with the word snake in it, when that's your enemy's whole marketing strategy? Being called Rattlesnake wasn't the weirdest French thing to happen though. No, for that, we've got to look at a different kind of French entirely.
Canadian French!
Proving there's no Canada like French Canada, they changed his name to Zorro. Zorro?
Really?
I mean, I guess they both wear a mask and have swords, but seriously? Also, that's skating on mighty thin ice regarding copyright infringement. And yeah, I had to look up if the character of Zorro was in the public domain or not.
And the answer is... that's for the courts to decide.
No, really, it's being fought over in court right now. There's copyright trolls, musicals, and all sorts of stuff. The rabbit hole goes deep on this one.
Anyway...
one tiny bit about the texts of the file cards themselves. For most of them, they keep the text that he was trained by the same ninja clan that produced Storm Shadow.
That leads to a bit of a problem as we learn what the Cobra Ninja was called over here.
Stormy was called Bliksemschicht, which means lightning bolt. It's sort of in the same ballpark, weather-wise I mean, and they even justify the name in the Filecard, translating he can move with blinding speed to he can move like a lightning bolt. It does change the focus of the character. Storm Shadow invokes silence and stealth, while Lightning Bolt makes you think of speed and devastation. The French keep up the weather theme by calling him Tornade.
And you don't have to be a cunning linguist like me to figure out that means tornado.
This changes the focus of the character once again, this time to brutal, unavoidable destruction.
If you look at this from a different perspective though, it gets really cool.
Instead of taking these things at face value, namely translated file cards, look at them like names he's been given by people who've encountered him all around the world. For one person, he's the lurking doom hidden in the night, the Storm Shadow. For another, he's a ninja that strikes lightning fast and is gone just as sudden. And in yet another country, he's a force of nature that obliterates anything in his path.
I think we can all agree that this dials his awesomeness up to 11.
He stayed Tornade for the rest of his run in French, but in Dutch they later on changed his name to be just a literal translation, Stormschaduw. This is a bit of a problem, since Snake Eyes' file cards continue to refer to him being trained by the same ninjas as Lightning Bolt, not Storm Shadow. So it could be argued that the two toys represent completely different characters, if you ignore the French anyway. Well, you've met a rattlesnake with excellent eyesight, a mysterious ninja with many names, and a real fucker.
I think that's quite enough for one day.
Oh, don't get me wrong, there's plenty more file card fun to be had, so I'm turning it into a regular feature. That way, I now have Q&As, the occasional top list, foreign file cards, and the mashups to do in my off weeks. Speaking of those mashups, where we see if other franchises would fit into G.I. Joe, I've added a goal and reward to my Patreon. If I get 10 Patreon supporters, they'll get the vote on what the next mashup videos will be. Only patrons that pay $1 or more will count though, since nobody likes a smartass.
So if you want in on this, go to Patreon. No pressure though, since above all else, I just appreciate it if you guys watch the show. Well, see you next time, everybody. What? Oh, yeah, my Cobra t-shirt is in the wash.